Good morning, Malta and Gozo, and welcome to another episode of Lovin Daily. My name is John-Paul Sapati. Today I'm joined by Jonathan Chilia, and these are your 5 headlines for today. A shocking story of a fishing trawler capsizing a small boat in St. Paul's Bay because it was in its way was making the rounds on social media yesterday. Assistant Commissioner Ian Abdullah has been suspended from Malta's police force pending further investigations. A Maltese family was forced to sleep in their cars after power cuts resulted in heat waves, and protesters demanded Edward Zamit Lewis's resignation after Jahan message revelations. And lastly, an angry PL supporter, supposedly her rant went viral on net radio.
So, yesterday a bit of a story from the Maltese high seas took to social media, and it's gone quite viral and kind of shows what happens on the open seas when no one's really looking. So a Maltese youth, Alejandro Spiteri Monsignor, who happens to be the keyboardist of popular rock band Red Electric, shared this incident where he went out for his first ever fishing trip with a friend of his on a 16-foot boat, this small little boat, on St. Paul's Bay. They went out about 10 kilometers out to sea. First time ever fishing. They went out for a nice relaxed day and ended up capsized and in the sea with all of their belongings right at the bottom of the sea. Spiteri Monsignor shared this crazy story where they had situated themselves near some fish farms and were asked to move by one certain trawler. They moved to another area and they saw another trawler heading their way, a much larger trawler. This trawler didn't ask them to move, it didn't honk its horn, no one even waved their hands to move, and they just rammed right into them, capsizing their boat, sending both him and his friend into the sea. A nearby boat had to come, rescue them, flip their boat back over. He was left, really, really shocked and scared. The boat was left with damage, and he's opened up about kind of the disrespect that some trawlers, some operators in Malta are showing smaller private vessels and private fishermen. He spoke to Lovin Malta saying, listen, we weren't injured, but they were really, really hurt by the way things went down. And they asked, if this is what happens to us, what happens on a daily basis to other smaller fishermen who get in the way? Now, Lovin Malta has reached out to the operators in question to kind of see what they have to say about this. But, it just goes to show what happens on the sea and what we might not be seeing ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, imagine if this is how they treat small fishermen, how they treat other migrants out at sea and boats in distress. But it also goes to show just how territorial these waters can be. Even if you are just 2 individuals with a fishing rod and a line out at sea, it's a very, very serious business. Maybe in light of the fact that it's a very hard industry as well, very tough industry to make money in. But still, no excuse to obviously behave in that way and put people's lives in danger. Moving on to our second story, Assistant Commissioner Ian Abdullah has been suspended from the Malta police force. Abdullah, who led the Economic Crimes Unit up until January 2020, has faced stinging criticism over the years for alleged inaction on a number of financial crimes investigations, particularly when it comes to investigating top officials in the government. Most recently, the public inquiry into the assassination of journalist Daphne Caruana Galizia revealed that Abdullah had even met with then OPM Chief of Staff Keith Schembri to discuss excerpts from the FIAU reports which concerned the latter. He also allegedly held a secret meeting with the FIAU head the day before he submitted a report on Conrad Mitzi to a magisterial inquiry. And according to anti-money laundering laws, when an investigator tips off a suspect, it constitutes as an offence. So clearly he's been in some muddy waters over the past few years, not in the best limelight. And it's Lovin Malta revealed yesterday that in fact he had been suspended. A long time coming, John, don't you think?
Yeah, no, there's been years of suspicion in regards, Abdullah's work ethic, as we say. Let's be clear, under his tenure, there were very, very low numbers of prosecutions. In fact, once he was removed from his role, prosecutions when it comes to financial crimes actually started rising drastically. So it just goes to show what kind of work he was doing. This is quite an important development. Like I said, for years now, there's been questions about his standards. And I think the fact that now we've seen this step is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Moving on to the next story, a story that's been affecting Maltese families over the last few days, as this heat wave continues to ravage the island. A couple of nights ago, there was a power cut, an electricity power cut that lasted between 5 to 14 hours. Some people even said 18 hours in some localities, leading some people to exit their homes and go into their cars, put the engine on, put the AC on, and sleep in their cars with the engine running all night long. And this happened to a number of people. One mother explained how she had to take her 1.5-year-old son into the car in the middle of the night because he couldn't sleep inside the house in the heat. Another woman talked about taking her 7-month-old baby into the car for 2.5 hours until the electricity returned. And these are just a couple of the families that were sharing their experiences on Facebook. Now, it's really, really hot. We don't need to tell you this. So obviously everyone's got their ACs and fans on. There's quite a demand for electricity. But you know, it is 2021 with the interconnector and all of that. You know, is it acceptable at all to have these kind of in the middle of the night?
I don't think it's acceptable at all. In fact, this very well could have ended up in a tragedy. You know, people do lose their lives in heat waves. In fact, we've seen it this year. Malta isn't the only country to be affected by a number of heat waves. In Canada as well, a number of people have lost their lives from heat waves. So the fact that this happened in the midst of a heat wave is unacceptable. In fact, Malta has now, in anticipation,
Still live, but just okay, cool. Cool, that's fine. I'll just read it.
Where I can't explain.
Sorry about that. We had a bit of a technical difficulty. I think Malta heard us talking about the electricity. So I'm just going to jump right back into where we were. Maltese families are being forced to sleep in their cars as a result of power outages in their homes, with the ACs off, with the fans off in the middle of this heat wave. One mother has spoken about, you know, having to take her 1.5-year-old son into the car to sleep at night just to access a bit of cool air. Another mother talked about her 7-month-old baby having to sleep in the car, once again, just to access a bit of cold air. It's quite crazy. Like I said, some people in Hamrun reported 18-hour power cuts. I can't even imagine it. So just to be clear, when it comes to complaints to Malta, because a lot of people were asking, you know, can I claim compensation as far as this goes? In 2017, 234 requests for compensation with Malta were filed. It actually went down in subsequent years, so it's not a large amount per se, but I have a feeling a few people will be reaching out to Malta after this week to claim compensation.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite shocking in 2021 that we're still having these power outages, especially during a heat wave. I'm surprised it didn't end in any tragedies, because you know, heat waves are very serious, especially when we have temperatures reaching 40 degrees Celsius and you have young babies, people who are vulnerable and whatnot. It very well could have ended in a tragedy. So definitely, it is quite a serious topic. In fact, Eni Malta has decided to suspend all its planned scheduled maintenance for the week in light of the heat wave, and in fact will just be sending out engineers for essential work only. I think it's a responsible move.
Yes, definitely.
Considering just how hot it is. In fact, if you look across the world, other countries are experiencing heat waves as well, and in places like Canada, people have actually died as a result. So really, we do have to take this seriously, and the fact that we are getting power outages is definitely not a good sign. Moving on to our fourth story now. Last night, protesters gathered outside Edward Zamit's Lewis's offices in Valletta to demand his resignation after several messages were revealed between him and Jorgen Fennick, some of them which included him, Edward Zamit Lewis, making fun of Labour supporters, calling them Jahan, and as well as him kind of thanking Fennick for his support and whatnot. The messages were shared in court, and the detailed conversations between Edward Zamit Lewis and Fennick between January 2019 and August 2019. At the time, Fennick was known to be the owner of 17 Black, but he had not yet been linked to the rest of the assassination, of Caruana Galizia. But obviously, this was enough evidence or reason for people to go outside his ministry last night to protest, carry signs calling for his resignation. There were also placards of Il Arnita, which obviously means octopus, with photos of Fennick, Edward Zamit Lewis, and even Prime Minister Robert Abela on there. A reference obviously made to the kind of web of politicians and corruption that kind of plagued Malta, and the kind of octopus tentacles that has spread in all kind of aspects of life. So, wasn't the best turnout, unfortunately, for a protest, though.
I mean, it wasn't bad, but we often hear about politicians being in bed with businessmen, and I think this Justice Minister Edward Zamit Lewis saga is really, proving it. I mean, we've seen the WhatsApp messages themselves. They're written in a very, very friendly way.
Right.
Some might say too friendly way. And it's been a week of pain for Edward Zamit Lewis. Besides the protest yesterday, the PM, the Nationalist Party, actually put up a billboard in Tritt Tal-Barani featuring Edward Zamit Lewis and two comments just saying Proset Ministru, Grazie Jahan, which speaks volumes. So yeah, we'll have to see if Zamit Lewis does resign. We'll have to see if Robert Abela takes any concrete steps in his regards, or whether, like some ministers before him, he just keeps going forward. Moving on to the final story, once again related to Edward Zamit Lewis. A bit of a viral story that went viral yesterday. A woman who said that she was a Labour supporter called up a Net FM radio show this week to pile onto the minister after he had obviously allegedly mocked Labour supporters as Jahan. And for our international viewers, Jahan in Maltese is basically a simpleton. You're calling someone stupid, you're saying they're an idiot. So this woman called up Net TV, and in the audio, which you can listen to on lovinmalta.com, she's very, very emotional, and she says, quote, he insults us as Jahan, but he's the Jahan. How can he call us Jahan, but then blame the nationalists for speaking against Malta overseas? Does he have no shame? So if she really is a Labour supporter, as she says she is, it kind of goes to show just how enraged some people are after finding out that one of their, beloved ministers, someone that they possibly voted for, considers them an idiot. Yeah,
no, absolutely. I mean, at this point, I can imagine a lot of Labour supporters are quite ticked off with everything that has happened and unfolded over the past few years. There's only so much you can take with all these allegations, accusations, and corruption scandals coming through. But you got a question as well, is she really a Labour supporter, or is she a PN supporter disguised as Labour and coming on Net FM and just kind of give the nationalists a boost? I mean, it's easy nowadays to kind of hide behind a screen or a phone call and stuff and claim you're this or that. But really, the truth there is that I'm sure a lot of Labour supporters, while they might not show it overtly, deep down are upset with the situation and personally hurt, especially when you have ministers like this, the Justice Minister calling people Jahan. So it's interesting to see exactly how this pans out. Like you said, what actions will be taken against Edward Zamit Lewis, whether he will step up and be responsible himself and resign. We'll just have to wait and see. But that brings us to the end of today's episode. Once again, apologies for the technical issue earlier, but thanks for sticking with us, and have a day full of lovin'.